Hey guys, and welcome to Comics and Chill, where today we will be talking about Transformers Generation 1 Prime Directive, a 6-issue miniseries published by Dreamwave Productions in 2002. Now, if you've been around my channel for a little while, it is no secret that I'm a big fan of the long-defunct comic book publisher Dreamwave Productions. Founded by brothers Pat and Roger Lee, the company was originally part of Image Comics, where they produced several original comic series heavily inspired by popular anime movies of the time. As time went on, they were able to acquire the licenses of several popular animated and video game franchises to produce comics of before flying too close to the sun, financially speaking, and crashing and burning in a spectacular fashion in 2004. But at their high point, they were producing some very slick and stylish comics infused with a pseudo-anime look that I was eating up at the time. And the franchise that really put them on the map for a short while was the Transformers. I have a couple of videos covering the company's history, but if you haven't seen those, I'll give you a quick recap as to how they came to get a hold of the Transformers license. So in the early 2000s, there had not been a mass-market Transformers comic for nearly 10 years, since Marvel's short-lived Generation 2 series. Interest in Transformers had kind of fizzled by the early to mid-90s, at least as a comics property, and so Hasbro didn't bother to offer up the license for a while. However, in the year 2000, capitalizing on a wave of nostalgia for many great franchises from the 80s, Wizard magazine ran an article called Big 80s, where they fan-cast creative teams to revamp He-Man, Thundercats, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and you guessed it, the Transformers, commissioning the chosen artists to each do a piece for the article. Well, Pat Lee got picked for the Transformers franchise and brought his pseudo-anime manga flavour to the piece, which apparently became a big hit with not only the fandom, but the people at Hasbro, and suddenly Hasbro was looking to make Transformers comics again. After a brief scuffle, mainly with Marvel, Dreamwave landed the license in December of 2001, and by April 2002, they were ready to roll out their first Transformers comic. And that's what we're going to dive into today, right after a quick word about my new comic, Chewbots. Chewbots is a 4-issue comic book miniseries set in a small Welsh island in the Irish Sea, where a group of sentient steam trains live and work for a massive soda and snack conglomerate, the Zycola Corporation. The lives of the trains completely change when a meteor strikes the island, unleashing a radiation that unlocks their power to change into their new bipedal robot forms, the Chewbots. Confused and scared at first, the trains quickly become happy with being able to live life off the tracks, and things were peaceful for a while. However, their liberation from the rails eventually causes a divide among the trains, with two factions rising: those who wish to maintain the status quo, and those who wish to gain their freedom at any cost, wreaking vengeance on their corporate and human overlords for the decades of overwork they have suffered. Now, Chewbots is a comic I've been working on for many years, handling all of the creative duties on it, writing, artwork, colouring, entirely by myself. It's heavily inspired by my childhood love of steam trains, the Beast Wars TV show, and the slick style of Dreamwave Transformers comics. With that being said, this comic is very much its own beast, with a rich world and a cast of over 15 steam-powered robots. It has been a long road to get this book together, but now it is finally ready, and issue 1 is available right now on Kickstarter. Please check it out at the link in the description and pick yourself up a copy today. But now, back to the review. Written by Chris Saracini with pencils by Pat Lee, inks by Rob Armstrong, and colours and background art by a whole team of people, Transformers issue 1 hit with a bang. The hype around it was pretty huge, and the series actually topped the Diamond Comics sales chart for 4 of its 6 issues, one time being beaten by Dreamwave's other Transformers comic, Transformers Armada issue 1, and the other time being beaten by a sales stunt from Marvel with Fantastic Four issue 60, which was being sold at only 9 cents a copy. But did the comic live up to the hype? Well, the story kind of reflects the absence of the Transformers from the comic book world by setting the plot after the end of the Transformers Civil War that took place on Earth and ultimately ended with the humans and Autobots teaming up to push back the Decepticons. When the war came to an end, the Transformers agreed to leave Earth in a ship co-built with the humans called the Ark-2, taking with them a small team of humans to study Cybertron and send back data to help advance Earth technology. However, the ship exploded not long after launch, with all souls and tech aboard believed to be burnt up and lost. Fast forward 5 years and the Transformers are showing up all across Earth again, fighting in war zones that they have no business being in and acting in a very robotic manner. It's revealed that they've been found and resurrected by a man named Lazarus and his mercenary outfit, who has reprogrammed the Transformers, both Decepticon and Autobot alike, to do his bidding, selling their services to the highest bidder. When the US government gets wind of this, they quickly contact Spike Witwicky, who has a history with the Transformers and whose father, Sparkplug Witwicky, perished aboard the Ark-2. They reveal to Spike that they have found Optimus Prime and need his help to reactivate him so they can fight back against Lazarus and his mind-controlled Transformers. Eventually it is revealed that Megatron is not as brainwashed as Lazarus would believe, and Megatron frees himself and his fellow Decepticons, destroying Lazarus's facility, and begins to unleash a metallic virus on Earth to transform it to a similar condition to Cybertron. From this point, Optimus works with the US military and Spike to resurrect his fellow Autobots from the bottom of the ocean and take off to stop Megatron. So that's just the setup for the story. I don't want to ruin the whole thing for you, but now we're going to dive into what I did and didn't like about the series. So let's start off with the good stuff. Style. This book has it in spades. The art style is what really made this book stand out back in the day. Dreamwave had already established themselves at being adept with digital coloring techniques and replicating the look of 90s anime on paper, one of the most standout parts of this book, especially for the time in which it was produced. When you consider how some of the last Marvel Transformers books looked, and how this is the first Transformers comic in nearly 10 years since then, it is incredibly impressive, and it tapped into the high interest in anime and manga that was beginning to take hold of Western pop culture. Pat Lee's take on the Transformers definitely came under some scrutiny, with many fans saying his robots were too puffy and bulbous for characters made of solid metal, along with his inconsistent anatomy. And I do just have to point this out, something I completely missed as a kiddo but cracks me up today, and is an example of Pat Lee's anatomy and not drawing through his figures. So here we have a killer looking fold out cover for the first issue of this series, but then some eagle-eyed fan has gone in a little deeper to explore what Optimus Prime's torso would look like behind the classic Pat Lee pointing Transformer hand, and it's not pretty. There's a few instances of Optimus having this longer neck throughout the comic, but this example is by far the most egregious. That being said, I still love this cover. But the finishes over Pat's work by inker Rob Armstrong really hold everything together, and the duo didn't shy away from layering in a high level of detail to the robots, bringing a strong sense of verisimilitude to their designs and the world. I loved looking at all the little vents, nuts and bolts, dents and scratches that had been inked and coloured into the Transformers as a kid. Rob Armstrong would also employ a heavy black line around the outline of the characters, whilst keeping the smaller details delicate and sleek. There's also a cel-shaded colouring style used on the characters, and all of this sits on top of backgrounds done in a more painterly style, which lends to the effect of this series, and like many Dreamwave comics, looking like an anime production. They definitely cracked the code early on of how they wanted these books to look moving forward. And I would be remiss if I did not mention how much I love the covers for this series. I've covered this in another video, but there were like tons of variants, I think something like 19 covers in total for this series, and there's not a bad one in the bunch. In fact, I even paid tribute to this cover as a variant cover for my comic, Chewbots, and I hired Rob Armstrong to ink it, and he knocked it out of the park. It was such an honour to work with him, as his style has been a huge influence on my work. Now, with all the praises sung, let's move on to some of the more negative elements of the series. The main one being storytelling. Both the script and the visual storytelling and acting through the artwork leave a lot to be desired. Now, there are some good ideas in here for a fun story, and I appreciated the efforts to try and ground the Transformers in something a bit more real world, present day, with all of the post 9/11 government conspiracy angles that this story takes, but the execution is pretty clunky. It seems to riff off of a lot of over-the-top 90s action movies, using some cheesy, cliche dialogue in that vein, almost as if they're riffing on Michael Bay films before Michael Bay would come in and riff on their Transformers comics, which I was surprised by how much the Bayverse pulls from these Dreamwave books upon revisiting them. Some plot points come completely out of left field. The metallic virus I mentioned, for example, that is not set up at all. It comes out of nowhere. And the pacing is quite odd, with the first 2 issues being overly decompressed and almost no Transformers appearing in any meaningful way, not speaking at all. And then from issue 3 onwards being a scattershot with tons of characters introduced all at once, all split into different teams, all trying to solve different problems, and with little characterization for the robot characters, it becomes kind of hard to care for what happens to them when the shit hits the fan. As for the visual storytelling, the shot compositions chosen are not the best at demonstrating the size and scale of the Transformers, and the compositions of the panels and pages themselves for directing eye flow across and down the page are pretty poor too. There are lots of awkward close-ups, headshots, character anatomy and silhouettes. Motion isn't clearly conveyed, and I found myself having to double back to check what was happening quite frequently. There are many moment-to-moment panels with copy and pasted artwork too, which I feel was intended to bring a more cinematic approach to the book, but in many places it just feels a little lazy. And a lot of these visual choices I feel may have been made to limit how many robot characters needed to be drawn, and to also avoid having to draw them as full body shots. Drawing a mech book is no easy task, and you can see that these guys had a whole team on board just to get the art done for this on a monthly schedule. They even had a guy, Edwin Garcia, whose sole job was just to draw backgrounds. Occasionally an extra inker would tag in, and a small army of colorists, with issue 6 colour team being 11 men strong, all pitching in, no doubt on tight deadlines, to give us this cel-shaded anime look. Despite its shortcomings, there's no doubt the passion and enthusiasm was there for this work, and it's that young artist energy that oozes from every Dreamwave book, which I think is the reason I love them so much. I hope I'm not sounding too harsh on this 22-year-old toy comic right now. I really enjoyed it at the time, and I still got a kick out of rereading it today. There's a lot of fun ideas and big dumb action going on here that is nice to switch your brain off to. I just feel that the pacing and setup of a lot of the plot could have used another draft or 2 in order to maximize impact on the bigger moments. I have a feeling, if I had to speculate, that this may have been written around the art and characters that Pat Lee wanted to draw from issue to issue, which would make rewrites after the fact for setups and payoffs a little harder. Volume 2 of this series, which I will review soon, definitely resolves a lot of these issues. So, can I recommend this book? My brain is saying, well, maybe I shouldn't, but my heart definitely says yes. How much of this is rose-tinted glasses and childhood nostalgia? Who can say? Probably all of it. But the look of these Dreamwave Transformers comics has stayed with me so long and influenced my style for so many years that it's hard for me to not still love them. And that about does it for this video. Tune in for the next one, where I'll be taking a look at more of the Dreamwave Transformers series. In the meantime, I will leave you with the trailer for my comic Chewbots, which is live on Kickstarter right now. You can head to the link in the description to pick up a copy for yourself for as little as £5 or $7, or whatever country you're living in. The entry level is affordable, so check it out, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.